I was curious to understand that.
Sir, actually, the civil webinar, that's why we have merged the civil webinar to Civinar, sir.
Okay, okay, okay.
So, sir, can we start, sir?
Yes, I think I'm fine. For 5 minutes to go, but I think sufficient participants are there. So I think that's not a problem. We can start. I think I'm good to go if you allow me.
Yes, sure, sir. Sir. Uh,
Okay.
Good
Let me
afternoon,
share.
sir.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir, and good afternoon, all the participants. We are very much fortunate to have Professor Dr. Ankit Kathuria, sir, from Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Jammu. And we are very much thankful, sir, for sparing your valuable time for our seminar. I'll be giving a small introduction about Professor Ankit Kathuria, sir. He has done his M planning in transportation planning from School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, in the year of 2013. And sir has completed his PhD in transportation engineering from IIT Roorkee in the year 2017. And sir has industry experience. He worked as project associate in ICRA Management Consulting Services for a World Bank funded project on road safety from July 2013 to July 2014. And he has guided many number of MTech and PhD students and many publications in reputed journals. We're fortunate to have you, sir. And sir has now working as assistant professor at IIT Jammu. I welcome you, sir, to the seminar, and hope we will be having a great audience, and participants will be having a great time with you, sir.
Well, thank you, Professor Das, for a very quick and a brief introduction. Thank you so much for that. Without wasting much time, I will just share my screen. So if you allow me, I'll just share it. Yeah, okay. So just to add to what Professor Das mentioned, I'm also acting as Associate Dean Infrastructure Planning and Management here at IIT Jammu. So I think that's a very, very big responsibility that has been given to me. I don't know how well I'll perform, but yes, this has happened. So, okay, as far as today's talk is concerned, I'll be talking majorly about capacity of bus rapid transit system. Okay. I've also mentioned that this title includes a revisit to concept of failure rate. So very interestingly, I have mentioned this title, and as we move ahead with the lecture, I'll be explaining you as to why and what was the reason for selecting this particular title. Okay. I understand that today's audience are mix of UG, PG students. Okay. So for the UG students, even if you feel that at some place you are lost, don't worry, okay, because I'll explain the things in little basic manner, okay. But just in case if I fail to do that after the session, I would love to answer questions from a couple of you, keeping the limit of the time, okay. So, well, whenever I give any lecture to any university or any college, I always show the picture. I start with this beautiful picture of IIT Jammu campus. You can see we are in between the hills, and it's a very lovely place. So we always, some people say me that I'm part of the marketing team, marketing for attracting more MTech and PhDs at the institute, which is absolutely fine. But yes, it's a beautiful campus. Right now, we are working in some 25 acres, but we have been sanctioned 440 acres of land. So the construction that we are doing is really, really tedious, because it's all undulated terrain, and managing construction in undulated terrain, it's a very, very difficult task. And it's, for all those who don't know, it comes under zone 4, and now as per reports it's moving to zone 5. So we are earthquake prone zone, and a lot of landslides and other things keep on happening. We cut a mountain, it falls, okay, the cutting edge falls. So we are really dealing with So even as associate dean, we are dealing with these sort of problems, of cutting, falling, landslides, and every time, we have to really struggle. But when it comes out this beautifully. So this is one thing. Okay. Coming back to the lecture. Okay. So when we talk about bus rapid transit system, okay, this terms, for some students it might be a little heavy term, but what is bus rapid transit system? So for making the things a little easier, what I have thought that I will explain them in a very basic manner as to what are the facility types. Okay, so let's say the first facility type that we see in public transportation or bus transit system is a mixed traffic facility. Mixed traffic facility or the bus system is the common bus system that you usually observe, in any city, wherein the bus is moving with the other mixed heterogeneous traffic systems. So it's just any normal system, which is at the first block here. Second, a bus transit system can be a semi-exclusive transit system, wherein sometimes it is done that, just excuse me for that. Yeah, sometimes it's done that the system is segregated, not physically segregated, but the system is segregated in a way that there, with the help of road markings, that this particular curbside lane will be dedicated purely for the bus movement. This particular block comes as semi-exclusive bus transit system. Then the third and the most interesting is the exclusive, okay, exclusive type of transit system, wherein the central lane or the, if let's say your road width is 10 meter or 14 meters, okay, the center 2 lanes will be occupied purely for the bus movement, okay. When it is occupied purely for the bus movement means we are physically separating this particular lane with the other heterogeneous traffic, okay. So there is, see what all delays, will be overcoming. See, if it's a dedicated lane, there would be no heterogeneous traffic related congestions, okay. A priority signals can be given to the buses, like when the buses are approaching to the signal, the signal will turn green. As a layman, I'm telling you, okay. There are many other factors. Overall, this kind of exclusive system will increase the speed of your system, okay. Everything is increasing speed, okay. If I increase speed of the system, it will be a perception in user's mind, okay, if the system speed is now good, let me travel by this system. So it's all image building of public transportation systems. This is one thing. So exclusive systems are like this. Another type of systems which are not very common, they can be either off-street bus transit system or the grade separated bus transit system, that we can even elevate the track because sometimes sufficient right of way is not available on the road to dedicate entirely for bus transit, for the movement of the buses. So at those places, grade separated or even the off-street bus, the one which is shown here in the fourth figure, is also used as a exclusive lane for the movement of the buses. So these are the 4 type of facility types which I wanted to discuss when we talk about bus transit systems. We are more interested into exclusive system, and today I'll be talking more about exclusive transit system, which are in India also known as bus rapid transit system. And why I have specifically selected this kind of median transit system, because in India, at maximum places where you observe, it will be always the median bus transit system. Moving forward, see what all questions you'll be having, please keep noting those questions down, or you can keep putting it in the chat box so that later on, once the lecture is over, I'll read the chat box and I'll answer it accordingly. Okay, moving further. So when I've explained you about the facility type, then it becomes important for me to give some, data-based understanding in this case. Let's say this figure I have taken from Transit Capacity and Quality Service Manual. It's a very famous manual which is used for, understanding operations of transit system or bus transit system. However, for India, we don't have this kind of manual as of now. That's why we are using the TCQSM, which is Transit Capacity and Quality Service Manual, which is given by Transportation Research Board, USA. So this is one manual we are using. From though that manual, it clearly specifies that for different type of facility, you know, what kind of operational service it is offering. Like, let's see, if we consider vehicle speed, and you see this comparison in between the vehicle speed considering some base condition. Okay, let's see that when it is a exclusive median lane kind of system, you see, you know, it is performing better than the mixed traffic kind of system. When it is a grade separated system, it is performing better than the exclusive system. So it is just to show a difference between, you know, in terms of the speed that is being offered. Okay. All right. So when we talk about transit operation, okay, when we talk about transit operation, means operation of this bus system, there are three important parameters that we have to keep in mind. The reason why I'm telling you this is that this is the definition which is given by so-called the father of public transportation system, Wilken R. Vucek, wherein he clearly tells that the transit operation, when we talk about transit operation, we have to deal with three major factors. The first factor is capacity. The second factor is speed. And the third factor is reliability of the system. Okay. Capacity, anyhow, we'll be talking about capacity. But understand, all these factors are linked together. Okay. Speed is linked with the capacity. Reliability is also linked with the capacity. Capacity we are talking, but reliability, for those who don't know what I'm talking about transit, why I'm talking about transit reliability. Reliability of a system means that, let's say, if today a bus system is coming at 10 o'clock, okay, tomorrow that same bus unit is coming at 10:10, or the same bus unit is coming at 10:20, or another, on the third day it is coming at 9:50. So this will tell about the poor reliability, you know, because it's not reliable. You know, in very layman language, I'm telling that the system is not reliable. Let's say we talk about metro, you know, if metro gets 10 minutes late, then you are, oh my God, right? Because, you know, 10 minutes late. So that perception in terms of users, you know, this will happen, or this will change based on this reliability. Reliability is of various type. Okay, reliability can be seen from a user perspective. Reliability can be seen from an operator perspective. So there are different perspectives by which, you know, kind of we have to judge this reliability thing. Coming back to the talk, when we take this this operation parameter capacity, what does this capacity means? So I have put a definition about to make you understand what is capacity in a very basic term. Capacity on a stop is defined as the maximum number of the transit units. Like, let's say we select a point in a corridor. So on that particular point, maximum number of transit units that can be transported, okay, in an hour under specific control conditions. Okay, specific control conditions means that corridor will have signals also. Corridor will have bus stops also. Okay, so under specific control conditions, how many buses can pass a particular point in an hour is nothing but capacity. Okay, very basic thing, very basic definition. Moving forward, so whenever we have to estimate transit capacity, okay, in any corridor, there are majorly three impedance points. Like, let's say we are talking about BRTS corridor. You see the third photograph here. So we are talking about similar kind of BRTS corridor. So in this photograph, the third photograph that you see, so what could be the impedance point? Impedance point means where will your vehicle be stopping? Let's say your vehicle will be stopping at the intersection. Your vehicle may be stopping at a bus stop because it has to stop. It has to wait for the passengers to get down and you know, board. It can be, you know, this impedance can be on somewhere in the mid block. Let's say in any city, not for the entire corridor, the BRTS can be provided. Although the system is named as bus rapid transit system, but there would be corridors where you can't dedicate your entire road length for this system. So you will allow the buses to move as normal under heterogeneous traffic condition, and then wherever space is available, the bus will rejoin this particular corridor. So my point here is, whenever we have to estimate capacity, we have to look at the impedance point out of all these 3 points, which is that impedance point where the bus will be stopping for the maximum of the time. So it was observed by the empirical data that, okay, the bus is stopping for the maximum of the time at the bus stops, okay, because it has to wait and it is mandatory that they have to stop. So all the capacity approaches, see, if this becomes the major impedance point, so it will control the capacity, okay, because if it is waiting for the maximum time here, this will be the controlling point, okay. It is very important to understand that all the capacity approaches of any transit systems are based on stop capacity approach. People usually ask me, sir, if there are signals, why can't we calculate capacity of the signal and that will be the capacity of the bus system? Or let's say people also ask me, sir, there is a mid-block capacity, like if there are any PG students, we calculate capacity of any road, any 10-meter, 7-meter road based on the green shield model. It's a model wherein you calculate the flow, the traffic that is moving, and based on that flow, you will give me a capacity value with respect to whatever speed it is moving, okay? So that cannot be done with the public transport system. Public transport system, you have to follow the bus stop capacity approach for estimating capacity of a particular system, okay? So to make the UG students more clear, we should understand that we can't calculate capacity of road corridor to tell that it is capacity of a BRTS system. We can't do that. We can't calculate capacity of an intersection and tell that, okay, this is the capacity of the system. We can't do that. Third is, we have to calculate capacity of bus stops because it is offering highest, not offering, it is causing the highest impedance is being caused here. That's why we have to follow the bus capacity or the bus stop capacity approach. Excuse me if I over explain things, so the teachers are like this only. Moving ahead. So once we finalize that, okay, capacity, if we have to estimate, this capacity will be estimating based on stop, okay. But then it becomes important to understand the type of delays which are associated with bus stops, okay? Because even in the bus stop, what kind of delays would be there? So we have to see, and different research papers, different book, you pick up any book on public transportation, okay? Different books will tell you that these are some 4 sources of bus delays, okay? So the first source of bus delay is boarding loss time. I will explain what is boarding loss time. Second source of bus delay is passenger surrender time, or the dwell time is nothing but the time which is taken by the passengers to board the bus and to get down of the bus, okay? Means time taken for the boarding, time taken for the alighting. Next time is bus stop failure. So let's say in a BRTS stop, there are 2 loading areas, okay? When the buses are coming, they will first come halt on the one loading area, the first loading area, and it will wait for the passengers to move up and down. Second bus comes, it halts on the second loading area of the same stop, and the bus passengers move up and down. Now when any third bus is coming, it will definitely not find the subsequent loading areas free for dwelling, so it will wait, okay? So percentage of buses those are waiting per hour for finding the loading area free is nothing but goes as a part of failure rate and is known as bus stop failure. So the concept of capacity that we'll be discussing will be again and again talking about bus stop failure, and I have put some animations for you in which I'll be explaining in detail as to what is bus stop failure. Okay. Further, the fourth type of bus delay is the traffic signal delay. Now you will say me, sir, when you are telling that it is just bus stop failure, so it is just bus stop capacity approach, then how does traffic signal comes into picture? Because abhi you just said it is bus stop only which governs the capacity. But there are stops in the system which are very, very near to the signals. Okay. And imagine if there is a stop very near to the signal, even if the stop passengers have boarded in the bus, still the bus has to wait for the signal to get green and then cross. That's why for stops which are near to the signals, even the traffic signal delay or the traffic control plays a very, very important role. And we will see how all these things are incorporated into the capacity estimation formula. I have put animations for each and every delay that I was talking about. So the first type of delay I just mentioned was the bus loss time. I didn't explain it in the previous slide, so I'm explaining it now. Very easily, please understand, don't get confused. Let's say, I'll just start with this animation. Let's say a bus is coming, okay? It stopped at one loading area, bus door opens. Now the time taken by this first passenger, you know, the blue dot, time taken by this first passenger to board the bus is nothing but the bus loss time, okay? Why this time taken by the first passenger is dealt separately from the dwell time? There is a reason. This term was introduced specifically for BRTS in various manuals, because in BRTS you can have 2 loading area, 3 loading area, and when you talk about Australia, one stop will have 4 loading areas also. Like 4 buses can come and halt simultaneously. So there, it might happen that a passenger is standing on the 4th door, but the first passenger, and yes, he has to rush to the 2nd door. Okay, so some time is wasted in that. So that's why this specifically first time taken by the first passenger is dealt a little separately. Okay, there are reasons for that. There are reasons for that. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Sir, some students are saying the PPT screen is not visible. Can you stop sharing and again share the PPT?
When did it happen? Which slide? You could have stopped me before.
Someone else tried to present. That's why I think for that reason.
I'm really very, very sorry. From my end, it was. I'll again share it.
All this actually with some of one participant. He tried to present instead of joining.
Okay. Give me a moment. 1 second. Is it visible now? Okay, Professor Das, you can please stop me in between whenever you wish to, okay? Because sometimes screen is not visible, sometimes volume is not coming. You please stop me, okay? Okay. So, is it a thumbs up? Can I start now?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Great, guys. I am assuming that this slide you have not seen, so I'll show the animation again. Okay. So we were talking about the bus loss time. Okay. So I was talking that let's switch on the animation, that when a bus is coming, it is stopping on a loading area and the door opens. Now the time taken by this first passenger, the blue dot that you are watching here, time taken by this passenger to board the bus is the bus loss time. I'm mentioning that for those who have missed that this time, people thought it gets covered into the dwell time, because I already mentioned the time taken for passengers to board and alight. But the dwell time was then separated with this bus loss time. Reason? Because sometimes the loading areas are more in number. There are 4 loading areas, like in system like Australia, where there are 4 loading areas. The time taken by first passenger to board the bus, it becomes very, very critical and needs to be dealt in a very different way. Okay, that's why this is taken as a separate type of delay for multiple loading areas. Had it been just a single loading area for a conventional transit system, this terms makes no sense. Okay. Also, this terms it makes no sense for the bus stops which are alighting predominant, where only passengers are getting down. Their bus loss time will not be added, because it makes no sense. If passengers are only getting down, only dwell time will be added, the passenger service time. Okay. So this is one type of delay. Further, Sorry. Okay. See, there is a reason. Okay. Okay. We have seen the delays. Okay. But there is a reason why we are estimating capacity. Okay. I will take some time in this slide. Why there was a need to estimate these numbers. Okay. That when we talk about capacity, we are talking about some numbers, that how many numbers of passenger this particular system can carry in 1 hour. Okay. Because let's say when there is a authority wants to take a decision whether we should select a BRTS, whether we should select a metro, whether should we select a light rail transit, or whether should we not go for BRTS and only go for a bus system, normal transit system. So then these numbers play a very, very major role. See, I have put a very beautiful figure here. The capacity in terms of passenger per hour that is offered by a bus is 3,000 to 6,000. Okay. You must be thinking, sir, you just mentioned the definition of capacity in terms of vehicle per hour, but you can convert it into passenger per hour by multiplying with average occupancy. Okay. These numbers can be taken in passenger per hour also. Fine. So the amount of passengers per hour that can travel in one direction, let's say for bus, it is between 3,000 to 6,000. For LRT, it is between 6,000 to 10,000. For BRT, it is between 10,000 to 25,000. And for metro, it is between 25,000 to 45,000. Now, it became very, very interesting to understand that how do we arrive at these numbers? Okay. When we say 10,000 to 25,000, what is the calculation behind it? How do you arrive at that number? That is a very, very challenging task, because these numbers, when you are giving it to some authority or whichever political party is in the system at that time, you have to be very sound in terms of this calculation. That's why when say they have to compare between BRTS and metro, but the requirement of the city is just less than 10,000, then why would you need a metro? Okay. And people say that after 20 years, the requirement will increase. Then metro will be, be a good idea. But what about for those 20 years? You are operating metro at a very low ridership. It's a loss sometimes. So you have to think the planning of these systems have to be thought in that direction. So coming back to the BRT, since out of these systems, we are looking at bus rapid transit system. So we are concerned with what and how do we calculate these numbers? Okay. So for calculation of this number, usually delays we have seen, but there are two schools of thoughts. Okay. The first school of thought is related to failure rate. And second school of thought for estimating BRTS capacity is related to saturation level. So a couple of countries in their documents estimate capacity of BRTS using failure rate approach, and some estimate capacity of the BRTS system using saturation level approach. Okay. So failure rate, again, I just explained, is the probability that arriving bus will not be able to access the loading area due to it being already occupied. Agar bus, if it is already occupied, then the bus has to come and wait if all the loading areas are occupied. So the percentage of buses per hour which have to wait to occupy a particular loading area is nothing but failure rate. Second approach is a saturation level approach, which refers to the percentage of time that a vehicle stopping bay is occupied per hour. It is a similar kind of parameter, but looked from some different direction. They are saying FR failure rate is that when the buses are waiting, the percentage of time, and thus on the other hand, saturation level approach is the percentage of time the loading area is occupied, where the buses are standing. So there is a little difference in parameter, but it creates a lot of difference in capacity estimation. Okay, we will see how these things are incorporated in the formulas. So I have been constantly telling you about failure rate, but let's see physically for UG students. Let's see how it.
Hello,
yes, sir.
Sir, actually we are not able to share the slides with you. Maybe the same problem once again happened.
Somebody again shared the screen?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh God. Guys, if somebody is doing this, please don't share the screen because it creates a problem. It's visible, sir. Someone was mentioning it's visible. Oh, okay. God, it really disturbs the flow. Actually, the energy of teaching sometimes it goes with doing all these things. Pin the presentation screen. Okay. So I think the spinning of the screen needs to be done at my end. Let me understand. Okay. I know it's visible. All right. I think the rest of you can just switch on your microphone, and no worries. Again, stop me if it's not visible. Okay, it's the best I can do sometimes. God, it happens. It happens with the online thing. You know, every now and then we are just taking online lectures. So, anyways, Professor Das, just stop me. No worries. Okay, I'll repeat again. No worries. Okay. Okay. So a brief animation I have prepared for this failure rate to explain you what is failure rate. Okay, I've already explained in my words, but it is important for you to see. See, when one bus comes, it dwells for the passengers to board and alight. Another bus is coming, it is dwelling, waiting for the passengers to board and alight. Now, every subsequent bus that is coming and waiting in queue is nothing, but it is coming under this failure rate calculation. Okay, very simple. Very simple. We'll see how this percentage of buses which are coming and getting delayed are used in calculation. We'll see it in detail. Okay. It's a very interesting concept, by the way. So till now we have looked at these two. One is failure rate approach and one is saturation rate approach. But it becomes important to see that these two approaches have been used in literature from quite a long time. Failure rate approach, which is still in use. You see here, there is a blue color bar in this graph. The blue color bar is representing the failure rate approach, which is nowadays also very popular. The second saturation rate approach just came 10 years back, okay, 10 to 15 years back, and is now in use. But there is always a clash. There is a half of the the industry and researchers. They tell that we'll use failure rate approach, others say saturation level approach. There are some problems, issues with both of them, and I'll explain you. That's why there is always a clash. Okay. So when we talk about the basic capacity formula, you guys have to be with me in this formula, because if you understand this, then the rest of the slides will be just a cakewalk. You are estimating capacity. Please understand, in the numerator, it is the seconds in hour available for bus movement, and in the denominator is seconds that the bus occupies the stop. Okay. So when I say seconds in hour available for the bus movement, let's say if there is no stop control, there is no signal in between, then for the entire hour, it is available for the bus movement. But if there is a signal or some red light, green light, to be very talking in layman terms, so then there is some kind of traffic control which comes as part of the numerator here. So what we are doing in this numerator, to estimate a value, we are multiplying 3600, which is number of seconds in per hour, multiplying by the percentage of time traffic control allows to enter or leave. So this percentage of time can be converted in the form of green is to cycle time. Okay, every signal has a particular cycle time, so we can convert it into green is to cycle time, which will give you this percentage of green time in a particular cycle time. Okay, now this term, the numerator is multiplied by 3600. Further, in denominator, when you see, so denominator tells you information that is seconds that the bus occupies the stop. Okay. So for the time the bus will occupy the stop will include the portion of dwell time, time for boarding and alighting, clearance time, like the time for the bus to travel its own length and clear the stop, that will be also one of the time that goes wasted in public transportation system. Third is allowance for particularly longer dwell. Okay, there would be, if you are estimating capacity, you have to keep some factor which is a little related to probability, that we are allowing for particularly long dwells. Not every dwell time will be at average dwell time. Let's say average dwell time is 15 seconds. Not every bus will be coming at 15 seconds. Some buses might come at 15 seconds, stop for 15 seconds. Some may wait for 20 seconds, some may wait for 22 seconds also. So we have to allow for particularly longer dwells. So that particular factor will also go in the form of this denominator. And now the thing will become more clear when we look at this particular formula. Okay, so this is what I was talking. So 3600 here is nothing but the number of seconds in an hour available for the bus movement. Green is to cycle time is that if there is a signal and there is certain cycle time in that signal, okay, cycle time will be comprising of green time, red time, yellow time, okay, and then out of that particular cycle time, how much is the green time? Okay, only that particular time will be allowed for the movement of the traffic or the movement of the buses. Fine. So that will cause a reduction in the number of seconds which are available for the bus movement. If there is no signal, if the bus is not near to the signal, you take this G by C as 1. Okay, you are dividing this term by a clearance time, which I told the time taken by the bus to cross its own length. Then the dwell time. Okay, you're also multiplying the dwell time by G by C. Okay, why you are multiplying the dwell time by G by C? Because if your bus, if your stop is again near to the signal, okay, and it's already green, okay, it's already green, but then also your bus is stopping, so you are wasting that time. So that's why we are multiplying this G by C with the dwell time plus allowance for a particularly longer dwell. So this particular term is converted into 3 terms, which is Z, CV, and DT. Okay, Z is a term related with the distribution of the dwell time. I'll explain how it is related. CV is the coefficient of variation of dwell time. Okay, and DT here is nothing but the average dwell time. So don't the equation. Why I'm explaining this, because so that you are comfortable with the parameters. So this is what it is that BN talks about the capacity of a particular loading area. And then 3600 is the number of seconds. I've already talked. G is by C is the green time ratio. Z is the standard normal variable corresponding to a desired failure rate. This Z value that we will be estimating, will be connecting it to failure rate, and then we will do the estimation. Further, CV will give you information about the coefficient of variation of dwell time. Okay. Yeah. Now, this particular term ZCV/DT is nothing but is known as operating margin. Why it is operating margin? Because it is the maximum amount of time that an individual bus dwell time can exceed average dwell time. So I explained you, not every bus will be coming at 15 seconds. Some buses can come a little later also. So in that case, you are providing for that extra allowance. Okay, this is nothing but that's why this is known as operating margin, or TOM. Moving further. Okay, so we were talking about, sorry. Failure rate here is the percentage of these buses which are standing in queue per hour. Okay, how many percentage of buses stand in queue, though that particular data is linked to some kind of normal distribution. So don't get confused. Normal distribution here is a distribution of the dwell time. This failure rate is checked with this normal distribution. For example, if the failure rate is 10%, that 10% of the buses in a particular hour are not finding the loading area free, then based on this distribution, there is not 90% probability that any dwell time will not cause interference with the following bus. Okay, so very simply, I'm trying to explain that this 10% of the value, okay, will be used to find nothing but a certain Z value, and this Z value will come from this normal distribution dwell time graph. How we are converting, so a little conversion quickly to understand for students, those who are not aware as to how do we estimate Z value. Z value is nothing but we are estimating there is a certain average dwell time and there is a certain particular value of dwell time. When we subtract that, divided by standard deviation, okay, we get some Z value, okay. This Z term can vary from anywhere around, -3 to 3. Now, operating margin is estimated by multiplying this Z value with the average dwell time, which is TD here, and the coefficient of variation of dwell time, okay. So the major assumption of failure rate approach is that it floats over an assumption that dwell time always follows normal distribution. This is the biggest assumption. So normal distribution for UG people, if it is getting a little difficult, normal distribution is nothing but you are modeling your data, okay. You're modeling your data in a way that it is following a certain type of bell-shaped curve, okay. So you have modeled your data, and this was the closest model of your data, that your data is following some sort of bell-shaped curve, okay. So this is an assumption of the failure rate approach, but every time your distribution or the dwell time will not follow normal distribution. So this assumption, according to some researchers, some authority people, they always question me on this. Let's say whenever we were working for some kind of transportation, we were making some timetables, we were estimating some capacity of some systems. Every now and then they put a question here that how are you taking a particular dwell time to be normal distributed. So this is one big assumption on the shoulders of failure rate approach, for which many people are not comfortable with. Now, next important parameter that comes into picture is the next important method is the saturation level. So the formula that you just saw was the failure rate approach, and formula that you are looking at now is a saturation level approach. It is all a similar kind of formula. You are dividing 3600, you're dividing, just hold on a minute, I'm just in a picture. So in this formula, you're dividing 3600, which is a number of seconds available per hour, by similar kind of parameters. But the only thing that is changing in this formula, a new parameter xi has been introduced. So the concept of failure rate, in the last formula you saw there was some operating margin in the denominator. Okay, that concept has been changed, and a new parameter xi has been provided here in this particular approach. And xi is nothing but acceptable saturation level. It is the the percentage of time for which your loading areas were occupied. So let's say if it is occupied for 60% of the time, this xi value will be 0.6. If it is occupied for 40% of the time, the xi value will be 0.4. So this becomes as a second approach for estimating capacity of a system. So what were the gaps? So what were the gaps, and why in India, what was the need? I mean, why I thought of working on it. We till now in India were estimating capacity of this BRTS system considering 25% failure rate. We, without looking at our data, we just considered 25% failure rate. It means that we were telling that this is the maximum failure rate which is allowed for a particular system. Let's say by 25% failure rate, I will, to be more, I'll talk in a layman language, that if your failure rate is, if you will allow a very, very high failure rate, it means that you are compromising with the speed also. Because if you will allow more number of vehicles to wait in the queue at a particular stop, means you are compromising with the journey speed of that particular bus. Okay. But okay, still, for conventional system, this number was given as 25%. The documents told that, okay, you use this 25% number into your capacity estimation and estimate the capacity of the corridor. But the problem came that this 25% number was for normal conventional transit system or the normal bus services. Should this 25% be used for BRTS system also? Because BRTS systems are dedicated system. Okay, these are very dedicated system wherein this 25% might be it can be more also, it can be less also. So it was a hypothesis. This value can be high, this value can be low. But how do they arrived on this 25% value? When we looked more deep into these manuals, we saw that okay, they were choosing that they were kind of relating the queue length, okay, the queue that is happening with the speed. And they told that for a level of service E, okay, you can't go below 10 kilometer per hour of speed when you talk about considering failure rate. Okay, so 25% according to this all old manuals was compared to this 10 kilometer per hour speed. Okay, but again second question came to our mind, that if for BRTS system we consider 25% failure rate, BRTS systems are to be made not to run on 10 km per hour. If it is running, if we consider capacity at 10 km per hour, then we are doing some blunder. Okay, so it should be, at least we have to put some benchmark, it should be 20 km per hour. Below that, if BRTS is offering, then it is not a BRTS, it becomes a normal public transport system. So there were many thoughts coming to our mind, and that how do we play with this failure rate thing? See, you should imagine that there is a problem with doing any study on public transportation system. The biggest problem is you can't just pour in buses on the, if there is BRTS system of Ahmedabad and I tell you the system is moving, now you tell me add more number of buses and explain me how the things are changes. You can't do it on the field. Okay, so if I tell you as okay, I want to observe the queue length, please add more number of buses. On field, it was not possible. That was, we were forced, okay, to use simulation or micro simulation tools in this case. So one such micro simulation tool that we used was Vism. Okay, Vism is a very, very commonly used micro simulation tool in transportation industry. You go to any company, many people know it. So in that tool, we got the flexibility of adding more number of buses and playing with this, speed and the failure rate values. So this is just a thought, and this was the reason. And only on this thought, I mean, one of our publication came in very reputed journal. So moving forward, I'm telling you, even like failure rate, even saturation level approach has an assumption. Okay, failure rate had an assumption that dwell time are normally distributed, but saturation level approach had an assumption that we have to select a saturation value of 0.6. The manual tells that always select 0.6 in the calculation of the capacity. Then the thought always comes, why do we select 0.6? I mean, you are forcing us to select that, okay, you mentioned that for 60% of the time your buses will occupy this stops. For 40% time it will be free. But how are we arriving at that 0.6 value? How can we be forced to use 0.6 value? So then again, a second level of research comes into our mind, that what should be this value of saturation level? Should it be 0.3, 0.4, or should it be 0.8? How do we arrive at that value? So this is part of saturation level. However, I will not be discussing saturation level in this class because I'll be explaining the failure rate approach only. Moving forward, respecting the time also. So once these little bit things were clear in our mind, we looked at the capacity formula, all these calculations. Okay, don't worry, even I find these calculations very boring, but it is important to sometimes tell you. Okay, so when we looked at all these calculations, all these formulas, then the next step was to use or to, okay, let's practically take some BRTS system and then start doing some work. Okay, then we went to Ahmedabad BRTS system. Ahmedabad is a very successful model of bus rapid transit system, wherein now it is almost, I think, 112 kilometer of BRTS network which is running in the city. Okay, now when we went to the particular network and we say we have to work on this capacity kind of thing, the first problem came to our mind is, should we work on the entire network data? Should we take the entire network to estimate capacity, or should we just consider a 10 kilometer or 5 kilometer of length to estimate capacity? You know, this was one very basic problem. Then a very good document that we read in one of the literature, it mentioned that you collect the boarding alighting data of the entire corridor. You know, you will, since it was Ahmedabad Janmarg Limited operated, so we collected the entire boarding alighting data of the stops. So we only targeted that corridor, which is the busiest corridor in terms of the boarding and alighting passengers. And we then shortlisted the 100 kilometer corridor to, okay, that will deal with 4.6 kilometer of corridor, okay, because we have to move as per definition. So when you are talking about capacities, we have to focus on that particular corridor which is maximum loaded, okay, because we have to give some kind of the right calculation. So we focused on the busiest corridor and we selected this 4.6 kilometer corridor for our study. Now, this is how the station looked from inside. It's a very beautiful station, okay. When I saw BRTS, I mean, it was my first time when I visited Ahmedabad and saw BRTS. You know, my perception of buses in my mind was that, okay, you know, bus systems are like any other stops, people standing on the road. But this was, again, a very well managed stops, wherein the ticketing was done before you enter into the bus, and very perfect example of a BRTS station or BRTS system. This is how it looks like. Moving further, I was explaining you that, okay, once we selected this corridor, but then the major problem came. These things, okay, these terms that we are explaining, that we want to check how much queuing a bus can take. We want to check how much failure rate a stop can take. Doing it practically on field, we were lost. We could have not done it. So that's why we thought that, okay, we will take help of this simulation tools. We kind of made this network, the entire network. Okay, we took this first, we took a Google image, and then we created the network, entire corridor on the Vism platform. Okay, this is a little critical because whenever you're using any simulation model, there are a lot of problems because you have to play with the calibration also of this model. So we kind of calibrated the model for BRTS systems. We did that. It was a very lengthy process. There are some parameters by which you calibrate. Okay, in this class it may not be discussed. Then what we did on this corridor, we installed this bus stops. Okay, one bus stop, this direction, and then we poured in traffic. Okay, and we kind of also, to that traffic, we gave some information of the speed. Then what we did, we just kept on adding the traffic or adding the buses. As the buses kept on increasing, the queue kept on increasing. So then we estimated, because we had some information that, okay, we have to limit this queue to a level with respect to some corridor speed. Okay, so we kept on adding, kept on looking at the speeds, and then we analyzed, okay, that as to how the data is coming out and what we got, what kind of data that we observed from this was, I will show you. Okay, yeah. This was the kind of data that was observed. Okay, we got a failure rate data, we got some kind of speed data with us. Okay, we getting this failure rate data and getting the speed data, then the next step was to divide it into certain clusters. Okay, we use some kind of clustering technique to divide the speed data into cluster, and there were other ways. There were other things also to divide into cluster. I'll not explain it here, but you imagine that you are dividing your speed data into certain cluster to tell that what speed is good, what speed is not good, or what speed is average, medium. Okay, so since we got from the literature that the failure rate should be corresponding to some speed value, which is the lowest speed value. So in our case, this lowest speed value, let's say we took it somewhere around 14 or maybe you can say 14 kilometer per hour. Now, based on that 14 kilometer, 17 to 14 kilometer per hour, we selected, sorry, it is 17 kilometer per hour. For that particular 17 kilo per hour, we selected a particular failure rate value, which is coming out to be 29%. So this was then proved that, okay, for a particular BRTS system, the failure rate value that was given in the various manuals which were used abroad and what we were doing, it was little not accurate. In India, we can take it to 29% value also. Okay. See, this 29% value will change many things. Okay. Because if you're allowing more queuing, then definitely your capacity number will increase. And if your capacity number increases, then the convincing and the that all that politics also comes into picture, that whether we go with a metro system or whether we should, like in Delhi, you see the BRTS was entirely scrapped. So all those discussions, and that was the reason why we did this study, by the way. Okay, so all those things come into the picture after that. So we told that, okay, 29% is the failure rate, but then a lot of questions came from different sides, from different end, that you have just collected Ahmedabad data. You could have collected Amritsar data also. You could have collected this city, this city, and this city. So we have to start from somewhere, okay? And we can't just say that, okay, data was less, so the observations are less. We have to assume that BRTS are a little bit same in nature, because there are 2 loading corridors everywhere and they are dedicated everywhere, okay? So the data still is reliable, because in these kind of study, we have to look at the depth of data rather than, looking at the breadth of data. I mean, this is just, I'm defending my study, nothing else. Okay. So of course, we also suggested some modification in the capacity formula. So I will not take you into this mathematics, that how and we suggested, but yes, for all those who will be interested can read the papers that I'll be putting in the conclusion slide. But yes, there were some formulas which was improved and given by us. This is how it looks like. So don't worry, I'm not talking about much of mathematics, but there are one important thing which I want to tell you is, you estimated capacity, okay? But there is one more thing, that you estimated capacity of each loading area, okay? But let's say for load, if there are 2 loading areas, see the figure here. If there are 2 loading areas here, and let's say you estimated capacity for loading area 1, you estimated capacity for loading area 2, but if sometimes it may happen, come to the scenario number 3 in the figure, it might happen that your loading area 2 is occupied, and there is no, you can't move to loading area 1 because there is no space, there is no separate lane for you to move to loading area 1. So there is some loss in efficiency of loading area 1, because your buses are waiting behind loading area 2, your one bus has left loading area 1, your loading area 2 is now occupied, but it is stopping the other bus to go to loading area 1. So there is some loss in efficiency of loading area 1. This is a very, very important thing. Even this creates a problem in calculating the capacity. So this thing we did, based on some kind of trajectory data. Okay, we observed. I mean, trajectory is just one thing that is not required. Even by simple calculation, if you collect data of a day or 2 days, you will understand by how much of the time the scenario 3 happened. For how much of the time? I mean, did it happen for for some 30 minutes in the entire day, 40 minutes in the entire service period? I should not say day. So based on that, you calculate the loss in efficiency. Okay, not entering much into the calculation and respecting the time. This loss in efficiency for loading area 1 by our calculation turned out to be approximately 17%. So there will be a 17% loss in the efficiency of loading area 1, because it was not allowed to dwell since it was practically not possible, as loading area 2 was already occupied. So this is one thing. And then once we estimate capacity, we have to multiply the capacity of the first loading area by 0.83, okay, because there is 17% loss. So there is one thing that has to be kept in mind. So once we learned all these things, okay, all these models, we calculated failure rate. Now we had to actually further apply also. So we collected all this data, okay, for a particular corridor, okay, because come out of simulation now, simulation and everything got over. Now actually we were supposed to estimate capacity. Matlab what all formula we had calculated, we had to give it to practitioners. Bhaiya, you take this formula, you take this approach, very simple. We tell them approach and you calculate the capacity. Now, for that, okay, for a corridor, this was supposed to be done. What we did, we calculated all these parameters. Okay, we calculated a dwell time. We calculated if there was a signal. We calculated the signal time. We calculated the failure rate using some videography survey. That okay, even if videography survey is not possible, a failure rate can be estimated for P car by a person just standing there and noting down the number of vehicles which do not which are not allowed to get a dwell because loading area being already occupied. Then other parameters like clearance time to be a little more specific, we estimated clearance time for in the peak hour time, we estimated it as 10 seconds. So usually it took 10 seconds for bus to cross its own length and enter into the not enter, to move ahead of the stop. Okay, now further other parameters like effective loading area you can see here. So by all these calculation, I'll not enter into calculation, but important thing is that we estimated station capacity for every stop. Okay, let's say if the corridor there were, let's say, 5 stops, so we estimated capacity of each stop. See, you see the second last row. For the first stop, it came out to be 139.86 buses per hour. For second stop, 239. You definitely have to, it is in buses per hour, you have to multiply it with by average occupancy. That I'm not doing. I'm just keep it in vehicle per hour form only. So this values you see here. So for the stop which has minimum capacity will be the capacity of that corridor. So you can't use 239 here, because even if a particular stop is offering higher capacity, a stop which is offering lower capacity will become the governing stop. Okay, so out of these values you have to select the critical value, and the critical value in this case for the one direction movement came out to be 136 buses per hour. This for one stream. Further for downstream, because the traffic movement is like this, okay, now the bus movement is like this. So for the downstream, again, values were worked out, and the minimum critical value in this case came out to be 137 buses per hour, okay, which can move. But then the failure rate that we used here was the actual failure rate which was collected on site. But since we had to also calculate, we were supposed to calculate capacity on the maximum failure rate, that what maximum failure rate is allowed. So we calculated this capacity based on 29% failure rate, okay, by just replacing this 29% value. And then we got a total capacity to the range of 162 buses per hour in case of Ahmedabad BRTS system. Now you can multiply this 162 with passengers number also. There is always a fight for this number, that these numbers are very low, these are very high. But again, we will not enter into this discussion because we will take questions also regarding to that. So what were given as a part of conclusion? So as a part of conclusion, you see the present study approach proposed a maximum failure rate of 29%, which is 4% more than the maximum failure rate value of the conventional bus stops. Further, a revised approach to estimate capacity of BRT station was suggested in our study. Further, there is a need to investigate maximum saturation level. We didn't look at the second approach in this because there was a limitation of time. But yes, this is being suggested that further research can be done, which has not been done till now at least, that we have to play with the saturation level approach. We have to link it with queuing theory. Okay, and then develop some kind of acceptable saturation level. So this goes as a part of conclusion. And yes, to understand a little more about what all this concept and how the data was collected, you can just look at one of my recent publication in ASC Journal of Transportation Engineering. It has just come. It's a very, very recent. Also, a little bit of information about failure rate you can get in one of the third journal here in ICE Transport. And yes, if you want to understand the concept of bus loss time that I was explaining, and in more detail how that was estimated on site, you can also have a look at the second publication, which is related to Journal of Public Transportation. I completely understand that since the time is also up, my lecture's time, so I completely understand that this lecture for few might be a little, little more technical, because in UG teaching, we are not taught about all these things at times. But understand, sooner or later, these kind of subjects like public transportation operation, public transportation planning should be floated in at UG level as part of departmental elective, wherever scope is there, or maybe some open elective courses. I may also request Professor Das that, these kind of courses may be floated at times, if possible. So with this, I stop sharing my lecture, and I think I will enjoy discussion more than just, talking. That would be a little better. So any question you have, I'll just stop sharing. Any question, I'll be more than happy. Don't think that you're asking basic question. We can ask any question. Okay. So I'll just stop it. See the chat box. There are so feedback link, please. Professor Das.
Jyoti Kar has asked one question, sir. Can this system install at intersections or roundabout?
Definitely. The system, see, whenever you're planning a BRTS corridor, it is not possible that you will not encounter any traffic signal, or you will not encounter any roundabout. You will definitely encounter it. But then when they are approaching intersection, at the intersection, it will not be dedicated. It will be a open kind of movement. But as soon as the bus crosses the intersection or crosses the roundabout, it again merges back to the dedicated lane. So yes, definitely, this is how we do it. Jyoti, I was just mentioning this.
Trilochan Jena has asked, sir, how can we smooth the congestion of traffic?
How can we smooth the?
Means, I think his question is how to.
Let me. I can read his question. I think it is Trilochan Jena. How can we smooth the congestion of traffic? See, I mean, if you are asking me a very general question that in terms of heterogeneous traffic moving on road, then this is a little away from this topic. But if he's asking related to BRTS, that coming, like if the BRTS is moving on road, then we are forcefully reducing the available right of way for the traffic. Okay. So if he's asking that, sir, if you are putting in a dedicated road, then there will be congestion on the leftover part of the road. And if there is congestion on the leftover part, how do you deal with that? It's a very, very important planning question. Please, I keep on answering this question in every meeting, no matter where I go. Concept of BRTS is not based on a corridor. Okay, let's say what happened in Delhi. Please, let's be very honest, because this is student, we can say anything and will not be behind the bars. Okay, so when we say that Delhi, and we expect that just making a 10-kilometer of corridor, can you really shift people from private modes to a public transportation system with just a 10-kilometer of corridor? It's not possible. It's actually not possible. You have to provide them a service. It's a feeling, okay, that this is a system. Like metro will not be just for 2 kilometers, no? Metro, whenever metro is being planned, let's say Delhi Metro, it's planned for corridors, this corridor, that corridor. People accept it as a replacement of them driving by a 4-wheeler or 2-wheeler. Similarly goes for BRTS. See, how do we reduce congestion? You have to develop a network first, and only then the congestion will be reduced, because people will be shifting from their private mode to this public transportation system, because they will see that a higher level of service is being provided, good AC buses, travel time is less, and when I go on my vehicle, I'm just stuck in traffic. So that mentality will change and they will shift, and this is how it works. But for one corridor, if you say me, sir, that you are just taking away road from the vehicles, So we have to understand that it is our national urban transport policy which has to tell us that which is movement of more people than vehicle. Okay, so a bus, you know, see the amount of space it occupies and the amount of passengers it's carrying. See, if I tell you 50 passengers moving on car, you imagine the amount of space that it is occupying. So this is the thing. I mean, the congestion and a trade-off needs to be maintained in that case. Further, I have to see. Okay, I'm Mohammed Arif. How can maximum people are moved by public transport from private, which will help in traffic management? How can you move that? The very quick answer, you have to provide them that service. You see, Arif, if you ask about any city, okay, let me talk about any city, or Chandigarh or any city, let's say Jammu only. You know, when you talk about Jammu's public transportation system, I myself don't travel by buses because first either my bus should offer a very amazing speed, okay, that I am able to reach my office better than what I go by my private vehicle, or it is providing me better level of service. Let's say if I'm going in car, at least I'm in that AC environment, even the bus's level of service needs to be increased, okay, only then people will shift. So the entire thing is related with the type or level of service that is provided by a public transport system. See, metros, no matter metros are congested, but people like to travel by metro because a certain amount, you know, they have a good quality, is that less travel time. It is something is being offered. So if there is nothing to offer in your plate by the public transport system, people will not shift. Okay. So Pritam Kumar, how about the parking problems in India? As we see people park their vehicles anywhere they want, leading to a lot of problem. How this could be managed? Pritam, again, this topic is little more on parking management, I understand, but see, it's a very, very debatable topic. I mean, how do you manage parking? So the first thing we do, and we say nowadays, I mean, we are working on concept of congestion pricing. So what does congestion pricing mean? I mean, and I mean, a very, very, I mean, it cannot be implemented right away, but congestion pricing means that the areas where, you know, like the CBD area, the central business district area, which is in the center of the city, you know, whenever vehicles enter that particular area, they are charged something. So congestion pricing are of different type. Congestion pricing can be in the form of very, very high parking charges. Like when you go to Delhi area, the CP area, if the parking charges are 400 or 300 per hour, what you will do, you will say that, okay, I'll park it somewhere near to the metro parking, okay, and then I will travel by that metro system and go to and access the Connaught Place area of Delhi, okay. So there are different congestion pricing schemes which have to be implemented to control parking problem. Because if you tell me, sir, come with multi-level car parking, come with underground car parking, see, it is an endless thing. So you have to tax the people in terms of, not taxing in terms of literal, don't take the literal word meaning, but taxing or providing or using some kind of congestion pricing schemes to control that. So Pritam, this is my take on this question. Let me move to the next question. How the general traffic is affected by implementing this system? Anshuman, there is a publication by Dr. Vail Murugan from Central Road Research Institute. He has observed that how the capacity of a road is affected by, you know, coming up with a BRTS system. I think that publication is a beautiful paper. So you can have a look on that paper. It is, I will repeat again, it is written by Dr. Vail Murugan. He's one of the chief scientists at Central Road Research Institute, and he has looked into this particular thing very effectively. But if you ask me that how it is effective, numbers I'll not be able to say. But yes, if you tell me that, sir, volume by capacity, the V by C for any particular road, volume as in volume, the traffic volume, C means the capacity of that particular road. If that V by C is greater than 0.7, and sir, if you will ask me that, sir, will you provide BRTS? I will say no, because it is already approaching to 1. I will not provide BRTS system on that corridor. Rather, I'll select some corridor, which is a little more less congested. Then, but people will say that if you're providing it on less congested corridor and the demand is on more congested corridor, how do you solve it? For this reason, we plan for hybrid BRTS system. Now we are coming that, okay, we understood that on all the entire city network, you can't segregate, but there would be city network where you can segregate, you segregate there. And for the portion of the links where you can't segregate, let the bus move in the normal mixed traffic and it joins the segregated part where the proper right of way is available. See, the concept is all about controlling the total network travel time. So you have to see this bigger picture. Total network travel time, if you're able to reduce, trust me, you'll be successful in providing BRTS system. So this is one thing. So like metro, can we plan parking facilities, RTD bus terminal, at least main terminals at the bus terminals, maybe, okay. Of course, this is how there are terms, if you, I don't know if you are aware about it. There is a term which is kiss and ride parking, okay, and literally, I mean, I'm not joking. I mean, for UG students, I mean, if there are PG, they might be knowing it, but there is a kiss and ride facilities in different countries that wherein there is a parking place where people will park. Two people are coming together, they will park, and then they will use the certain amount of public transportation system. So the point here is definitely providing parking at the origin points of your public transport system really sometimes solves the purpose. Okay, so then definitely at terminal having a parking, it can really help us, because see, the concept of parking at terminal is related to the last mile connectivity. Okay, see, if you are getting down from a metro at a particular station, either you will use that metro if you have your own vehicle, because if your house is 1 kilometer away from the station, okay, you need to access the station. So either you will come park your car, or either there are facilities like e-rickshaw or other thing which is taking you to the last mile, door to, creating it as a door-to-door service. So yes, for increasing the last mile connectivity, very well, this point comes into picture. Jyoti, is there any regression equation for capacity calculation for this? Jyoti, see, if you ask me that capacity equation converting into a regression equation, it is very well possible, because capacity is dependent on parameters. We can do that. There are equations for that, because if I tell you dwell time is one parameter, okay, I tell you bus loss time is one parameter, and I tell you, I give you data of capacity, I give you, for certain locations, I give you on the other hand data of all these dwell time and other things for different systems. You can develop a regression equation. There are regression equations, but again, I told that, I am more interested in providing you some kind of empirical and, empirical studies. So I have presented that. But Jyoti, we can really, I mean, in this lecture, I'll not be able to, explain more about those equations, but yes, you can get in touch with me and we can take it forward. Another is by Mr. Vishwash. Sir, according to you, is the concept of failure rate more efficient or less efficient than the rest of the factors? According to me, the concept of failure rate is not the best. Because even now, further, I'm taking, if I'm doing my research, I'm taking it forward. I have started playing with the saturation level, because I assume failure rate, how can we assume that your dwell time is following normal distribution? So, there is always a concern in my mind. It's not, see, till the point I give you a formula, I can't say that, I'm using any other method. So till the point that comes, yes, we are using failure rate, but yes, as soon as, research comes up, and definitely, I think my school of thought will push a little more towards saturation level approach, which is also approach given by ITDP. You can have you can do a Google search about ITDP. Okay. Ritik Patel, sir, if any incident begins in the road, then sudden road jam occurs, okay, then in that time, how to reduce it? Ritik, this comes as a part of intelligent transportation system. And to deal with these kind of problems, we have, like for smart cities, incident management systems are coming into picture. Okay, wherein, you know, the network traffic is being monitored. Okay, this traffic can either monitored with the help of Google API data, which the data behind your Google Maps. So you can use Google API data, and you will see, you know, if any incident is occurring, and then with the help of videographic cameras placed at different locations, probable locations, and with the help of just using Google API data, you rectify that incident. A quick action is taken. Okay, because if any incident is occurring, a quick action needs to be taken. Quick action will be taken only when the information has been received by so-called authorities who is handling the, you know, that particular traffic of that road. So that needs to be dealt in detail. So yes, this goes as a part of, Mr. Patel goes as a part of incident management system, a part of intelligent transportation system. Patan, can we provide kiss and ride and park and ride facilities for Ahmedabad BRTS, or it is already available? Patan, if you ask me that, I'm sure for some locations it might be available, but I don't want to put my estimates. I think, I'm sorry, I'll not be able to. But there is definitely, we can provide, but there is always, you know, constraints of land use in that case, whether the parking space is available, or if a little parking space is available, should we provide multi-lane or multi-level car parking? So we have to look into that. But if you ask me, Patan, that whether Ahmedabad is having it, I will not be able to answer, because it has been now 3-4 years I have not visited Ahmedabad. So this is one thing. Tushar Kant Panda, sir, according to you, for attracting people towards public transport, funding should be provided for making more facilities, okay, in the public buses, or number of public transport should be increased. That can take people to any place inside the city. Should be provided for making more facilities in public buses, okay, or make a public transport should be increased that can provide, take any. So I think, Tushar Kant, you're talking a little more about first question. I think that you want to discuss is about public transport funding. I mean, how do we increase the funding? So whenever we talk about increasing the funding, see, public transport system should also be seen as a business. मतलब जब तक मुनाफे की बात नहीं करेंगे, तब तक, you know, we can't just live on subsidies, okay? And when pure corona time is there, and we say that maintain a particular social distance, maintaining social distance of 1 meter as per WHO guidelines, and following that guidelines into public transportation system will further reduce the capacity. So now it is high time that, you know, we talk about subsidies. And you ask me about funding. I would rather say that a bus system should be understood as a business. It's a business model. So proper advertisement inside the buses, you know, you can get some money. There are many other ways also to get money from public transportation system. This is how, you know, you have to use good business ideas. But buying new buses or, you know, purchasing new buses is definitely, you know, a part of discussion. It all depends on budget. Like in Delhi, if JNN URM scheme came into picture, only then you see this green buses in Delhi moving here and there. So I understand funding is one thing. I mean, the authorities have to get active, and they have to first, you know, at least give the numbers that these many buses are required or these many buses are required. Since it's a little, I think a transport authority person or Ahmedabad Janmarg Limited person can really answer what hurdles they face in funding. But yes, as an academician, I can answer this much. So, and he's also, Tushar Kant is also asking, sir, you know, why don't we provide more facility, you know, for definitely we can see there is one thing, Tushar, there is one very, very important thing I want to explain here. We talk about alternate public transport system. We say what mistake we do sometimes, that let's say there is a bus system, there is a metro system, there is a BRTS system, there is a e-rickshaw. Each mode should complement each other, okay? No mode should run in parallel. If there can be, of course, there are modes which will run in parallel, but the planning should be done in a way that each mode is complementing each other rather than creating a competition for itself. Okay. So let's say e-rickshaws are complementing metro for providing last mile connectivity. Okay. There are corridors where metro can be not be provided. You provide BRTS corridor, but then BRTS end stop should be connected with the stop of your metro, end stop of your metro. So that interchange needs to be designed. There are many other things. Okay. So this is how I answer to this question. Now, feedback link, Das will provide that. Or thank you for the answers. The presentation was wonderful. Thank you. How does the implementation of intelligent transportation system in a bus stop? When we talk about a stop and when we talk about this intelligent transportation system, what I'm assuming, Sobha, you were asking about public information system. Like there are ways by which we use intelligent transportation system. For example, in Jammu, what we are doing, or let's say in any other city you can do, we have installed GPS devices to various public transportation system. We can monitor this data, and we can effectively, produce a static or dynamic kind of timetable out of that data. Okay. This is one use by which we can implement ITS. This is just one thing. There are many other things. There is public information system, on the, just like metro system, where is your bus standing? So, all those things can be displayed live on your bus stops. Similar to various, the daily local train system, you can develop an app for your public transportation system of the city where you are. And based on that app also, you have all the detail, the live tracking and everything, because that has to be synced with the so-called GPS data. This is one thing. Another ITS technique that really improved is the priority signals. Like the signal have to be redesigned in a way that the priority should be given to the public transportation signals. Like say if there is a BRTS system, the priority should be given to the BRTS buses over the other traffic to cross the particular signal. So there are things. There's a very short way I'm telling you because it's a very broad question that you asked. Okay, now Patan, what can be done to increase the ridership of BRTS? It's a very valid question. The first thing, whenever if you become, if you go and enter into any authority, if anybody tells you that, sir, we will plan for 5 kilometer BRTS, say don't do it. Okay, please don't do it. So we don't have to show off the system just by making 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer problem. Just straight away we have to say don't do it, because if any system is coming, it has to come as a network. Small corridor will not solve the problem. Ultimately, what will happen? Nobody will use that BRTS corridor because it is not solving your origin destination. If you understand transportation planning, there are some, you have origin and destination. Okay, you travel from one location to other location. If you have that last mile connectivity with respect to whatever origin destination you have is not solved, purpose is lost. So my first thing would be never plan BRTS for smaller corridor. Don't do it. If you're planning for a corridor, take care of the last mile connectivity by providing last mile connectivity in the form of e-rickshaws or e-service, or there are many other ways to increase last mile connectivity also. So these two things can definitely increase the ridership. Most important part is the planning of your corridor. So wherever you're planning, the route design or the corridor design should be rational in nature. Okay. You have to play with the travel demand. You have to do some travel demand modeling. You have to understand the, the different zones, the different travel patterns, and only then you should design it. Otherwise, again, anything can go waste. So, okay, this was Khan. Second question, participant. Okay, sir, but where is the feedback link? Please, thanks a lot for the nice session. Thank you. Sir, please send session one link. Yes. Okay. I think, Mr. Das, I'm done with the questions, and yeah, I'm a little exhausted also. So 1 hour 30 minutes.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your vast experience and work on BRTS with all of us. We are honored to have you here. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Right. Thank you to you for inviting me, basically.
And for
Thank you, sir.
Around 180 students joined in this session, sir.
Oh, that's excellent. That's really excellent. You have a very good outreach, Professor Das. I really want to congratulate you and the head civil for organizing this kind of session, and it's really good. Managing 170 in even session in IITs, we sometimes fail to get this much gathering. I really appreciate. Congratulations.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
sir.
sir.
Participants from different colleges, faculty members are also present.
Okay, okay, okay. That's amazing.
Thank you so
Amazing.
much for joining.
Thank you.
We
Thank you.
hope this cooperation will go further in the future also.
Why not? Why not? I mean, you plan for a lecture, and I'll give your one of your lecture here, because we want to understand that area and the traffic and the other things in that area also. So that would be really great. Okay, then should I log out from the meeting? Is it good?
Sure, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I thank all the participants who have joined this one day all the sessions, and just fill up the feedback link of session 2, and immediately within 1 or 2 minutes you will be getting your e-certificate. If anyone faces some problem for getting e-certificate, then you can contact me. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you, our HP sir, for giving all his support throughout the day. And I thank TQ3 for sponsoring this seminar. And I also thank Principal GC Keunja for guiding us throughout the program. Thank you so much.